Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Afterthoughts. I'm Nadeem Kadir, and our guest today is Dr. Kelly Hennings of the Bloomberg Philanthropies. Doctor, we were talking about tobacco and the awareness and the youth that you're targeting. But just maybe the last question on this subject, because we have got another issue to discuss, is the road safety. But the this tobacco producing companies are multinationals, as local. They produce the cigarettes, but they also make a lot of revenue. But also they give a huge tax to the government.
Hmm.
So despite the warning, despite everything, they're innovative. They find new ways to make people get into the smoking habit, or new brands coming into the market. They would change the pack, make it colorful, or things like that. So isn't it a very I mean, uneven competition between what you are doing and then the millions the tobacco companies spend on publicizing? Because in Bangladesh, you cannot advertise the cigarettes. There's a warning on the cigarette packets. Although we have law, but it is very difficult to implement underage sale of tobacco products. But competing against these multinational companies, all the big local tobacco companies, and your funding for and work, isn't it very uneven competition?
It's a very good question, and a question that comes up very often in tobacco control. But we know that tobacco is one of basically the only product that's legally available that kills about a third of the people who use it. So it's a very dangerous product, and it has very major health impacts. And the government, the Ministry of Health and others in government, have the power and the ability to address tobacco use. And so although the companies are certainly strong and they are very savvy at producing and distributing their product, government really has the opportunity to push back and can really do a lot if they implement the evidence-based tobacco control policies that the World Health Organization is suggesting are most effective.
So, what is the suggestion, the ways to implement? Do you go about it?
Again, these are generally regulatory and legal things that are put into place by government to do effective tobacco control policies, creation of 100% smoke-free public places, complete advertising of products, including sponsorship and point-of-sale advertising. Those are all banned under the treaty, as well as pack warnings that we discussed a moment ago, education programs, and raising the price of tobacco products.
Right. But this is what I see in the developed countries. These laws and these policies are being implemented. One of my very recent visits to New Zealand, I saw that I came out of the airport desperate to smoke, but I found that you have to walk quite a long way into a garden, absolutely, in open space, and it's written smoking area. So despite the other open places, you cannot smoke, you'll be fined. But in countries like Bangladesh, how do you implement this policy? Because, as I said, there's lack of awareness, there's also a problem of education, and also implementing not only tobacco laws. I mean, other laws are also very difficult to implement because we'll be talking about traffic laws, but talk about traffic laws. It's very difficult to implement traffic laws also. People are prone to break laws. And I think in many of the third world and developing countries, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, the situation is the same, because we see movies from Latin America, we see movies from Africa, where tobacco is always on there. I mean, nowadays in countries like Bangladesh, many countries do not allow smoking on screen for drama or movies or things like that. But then it's totally not away. So don't you think that the money that you're investing and the competition from the multinational, it is not really working for you? Because smoking is still...
Actually, we think it's working quite well. There are a number of examples where this is working really well. For example, 2 or 3 years ago, Mexico City went 100% smoke-free. The entire city became comprehensively smoke-free, soon followed by a number of very large cities, very large urban areas in Brazil. This past December, the entire country of Brazil went 100% smoke-free. Similarly, Turkey, which is a very large country and complex, also 2 years ago went entirely smoke-free, and that law has been very highly implemented, about 90% compliance. So there are examples from around the world. Thailand also, many tobacco control laws in place in Thailand, including high tobacco taxes and high prices of products. So there are increasingly large numbers of examples of successful policy implementation. And actually, since 2006, more than a billion people are now covered by at least one effective tobacco control policy. So there is momentum, there is a movement forward, but there's lots of work to do still.
Definitely there is. Well, Dr. Henning, there's another field that you're working on, and it's the Global Road Safety Program. Can you elaborate, please?
Yes, Bloomberg Philanthropies started supporting global road safety about 2 years ago. Our program right now is in 10 countries around the world that have very high numbers of road traffic crashes as well as deaths related to road traffic. And Bangladesh is actually not a focus country at the moment, but certainly there's a very large problem here in Bangladesh. And what happens is that there are effective interventions, again, that can be put in place to protect people from these crashes. But in general, they're not very well implemented if, in fact, the laws exist in the first place. And so this is a new initiative for us. About 1.2 million people per year die on the roads. It's a very large problem and is slated to become the 5th leading cause of death overall by 2030. So there's a lot of increase in this problem.
Because urbanization is there, more traffic on the roads and all that.
Right.
But and what is the campaign that you're carrying for safety?
So we work in a number of different areas. We work on behavior change. This includes things like motorcycle helmet wearing for motorcyclists, the importance of always wearing a seatbelt inside of a vehicle, the importance of not driving while under the influence of alcohol or drunk driving, the importance of child restraints for children inside vehicles. And then there are other aspects of road safety that we work on as well, things like infrastructure and sustainable urban transport, the idea of getting people out of their vehicles and into transportation and other transportation modalities.
Right. Suppose the two things that crosses my mind. One is, suppose like in Bangladesh, the government is trying for alternative ways of travel, at least to the city center, leaving your vehicles behind. You take buses or express trains or things like that. Those are in the planning stages. So do you think for those areas you can help the government in funding these projects? Because they're very expensive projects for Bangladesh.
That's probably beyond the scope of what Bloomberg Philanthropies would take on, but there are certainly other entities that do work in this area. We collaborate somewhat with the World Bank, who does some work on safety and infrastructure projects. A lot of times there are big infrastructure projects that are undertaken, road building and similar, where safety is not really taken into consideration. So you have increasingly large highways with high-speed vehicles, because now vehicles can go more quickly, but pedestrians, for example, might not be taken into account. So you get increasing numbers of pedestrian deaths. And pedestrians are a very important part of this problem. Worldwide, almost half of road crash deaths are among pedestrians. They're not inside vehicles, they're outside vehicles. So it's an important issue.
Right. And the other question I would like to ask is, if you have a study of the vehicles on road in Bangladesh, most do not have the option for the safety balloon. The crash. If you crash, the balloon comes out to save the driver on that. It's not there. Older models do not even have seat belts facilities. Only the newer ones, and in this country we also import a lot of reconditioned vehicles, it is called. It's old vehicles, but they are repaired in Japan and sold as almost new. So, and that is very popular because it's cheaper in terms of brand new vehicles. So, how do you deal with in a country which has a high rate of reconditioned vehicles without many options for safety?
So vehicles are in fact one part of the road safety problem. And behavior is one part, vehicles are one part, and the road itself is one part. So there are various parts that are important, and certainly vehicles is one part of that issue. A lot of this has to do with setting up standards for vehicles and government regulation on what kind of vehicles are allowed to be put on the road and what is required for licensing, and that's an important issue for the government to get involved in. And it can be difficult when you have a lot of reconditioned vehicles on the road already that don't have
Yeah.
seatbelts and so forth. But over time, those vehicles leave the roadway. They become no longer in use, and anything newly coming on the market can be regulated to meet standards. So there are ways that countries have dealt with this problem, but it really does require government intervention.
So during your visit to this time to Bangladesh, what was your focus for both tobacco and road transport?
The focus of my visit this time was primarily tobacco control this week. There's just a lot of work being done on tobacco control right now, and we had some review of the progress and some thinking about what the future holds.
Okay. Well, Dr. Kelly, thank you for joining us this evening, and hope your program is successful, and I hope I'm successful in quitting smoking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hope you have a good trip. Well, viewers, before wrapping up, I would like to say that those of you who are not smoking, please do not go near a cigarette or a tobacco. I'm a victim of tobacco, so I request, do not smoke. It is harmful to your health, and we should quit if we are smoking. I'm trying very hard. I'm sure I can succeed, and I hope all of you who are smoking out there will try to quit smoking also. And on the road, be safe, drive slow, and be careful. Thank you for watching.